Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Trustees February 8th, 2021 meeting. Will everyone please join me in the pledge to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Andino.
Present.
Trustee Lang.
Present.
Trustee Howell.
Present.
Trustee Lee.
Present.
Mayor Luise.
And I am present. And tonight we have one appointment to make, and that is for the planning board, and this appointment is Sue Carpenter to the planning board to fill an unexpired term which ends April 1st, 2024. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Andino.
In favor.
Trustee Lang.
In favor?
Trustee Howell.
In favor.
Trustee Lee.
In favor.
Mayor Luise.
In favor. And I would just like to thank Laszlo Castellano for his service to both the sign and awning board, as well as the planning board for his service. And we wish Sue Carpenter the best of luck in her new position on the planning board. With that, we have two presentations this evening. And the first presentation will be by the Tuckahoe History Committee, which will be about geocaching circuit project. Julie?
Yeah.
Well, if Julie isn't here yet, can I just say from the Tucson History Committee, we are absolutely thrilled to have had Julie reach out to us and offer this amazing opportunity for us to be able to encourage other people to find out about the history of Tuckahoe, to go out into the community and explore and find these hidden caches, which will connect them to our Facebook page, which has the information about the different sites. So Renee, was Julie gonna present, or?
I saw her getting on.
I just joined. I'm here.
Yahoo! Great.
Sorry, guys. Work day went a little longer than expected.
Sorry. Thanks, Julie, for joining.
No, I'm super glad to be here, and I see a lot of friendly faces. So I see that Marge is actually on as well.
Yeah,
Great.
and I just thanked you, Julie, for getting in touch with us and for giving us this amazing opportunity to let more people know about the Tuckahoe History Committee and about Tuckahoe history. So
yeah, this is so much fun. And, you know, it was kind of serendipitous, right? I mean, to give, I don't know how much history you gave into, like, you know, how we kind of, you know, came about into this collaboration, but I'll just give just a brief history. I like to walk around. I guess there's not much more to do in COVID days in terms of there's no gym or anything like that. So I'm an avid geocaching person, geocacher, and I'll talk a little bit more about that aspect of the project. And so I'm always looking for fun places to either hide caches or find caches. And, you know, I went into the Malcolm Wilson Park, which is really just on the outskirts of Tuckahoe. It's, you know, it's really, it probably should be in Tuckahoe. There's so much history there. And as I was walking around, I was like, you know, there's so much history in this park. You can tell there's paths, there's like, there's railings, there's something happened here. I was like, there's something of historical importance here. And so I came back home and I started to research the site. And, you know, I already follow the Tuckahoe History Committee, but I went back and I devoured everything that was on on the page. And sure enough, I found 2 posts about the Malcolm Wilson Park. And then it just gave me an idea. It was like, this is great. Instead of just geocaching on my own, which I'll explain a little bit more what that means, why don't I do this with the history committee so that we actually, do a project that is good for the entire community. So I don't know, did you explain anything about geocaching, Marge, or?
I just said it's a wonderful way to engage other people and get people out to see
Yes.
the sites.
So I'm sure some people on the call are familiar with geocaching, but for those who are not, geocaching is a universal activity. People practice it around the world, and it's basically a real life scavenger hunt. So people hide things and people go and find things. And people list things that they hide on a website called geocaching.com. There's also other venues, but that's probably the most mainstream site. And they also have applications as well. And people use that same tool to actually find caches. And you would be surprised if you look at the website or the application, there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, in Westchester County alone. But amazingly, in Tuckahoe, we don't have any. There's no caches. No one's ever hidden anything. There's a couple in Bronxville. There's a couple in Eastchester, but none in Tuckahoe. And that's what was giving me the idea to actually put some in Tuckahoe. So that's how we got together, and so we devised this project to basically, instead of just hiding things just for fun, why not hide these caches in places of historical importance? And so reached out to Marge, and then we basically selected 12 spots in Tuckahoe where we will be hiding little treasures for people to find. So we think it will be a great activity for families, and also to bring people from outside of town. This is an activity that a lot of people like to practice. So it might actually bring people from out of town and come and get a muffin and a coffee in town in these cold days. So what this looks like, I wanted to just show you a little bit what these things might look like. This is an example of, this is just a traditional cache. I should probably turn my background off, but you can sort of see it's just like a little container. And usually what you would find in a cache is you might have some loot. So, there might be like little trinkets that people can take and put things back. And usually there's a log, so people can grab a pencil and write their name, so they can say that they've been here and they found this particular cache at a point in time. If they're using the app as well, they will log that they've been there, so we will know like how many times the cache has been found, and then they put it back in their place. So this is an example of like a traditional cache. And then there's like other caches that are kind of fun. Like, for example, this is another kind of cache. So you can see this is a little gnome dude that opens up, and that could have little prizes inside, or a place to like write your name. So this is another example. By the FYI, like these may or may not be used in the circuit. No guarantees here. Or some can be very deceiving. So for example, this is like a bottle cap, but it's actually a cache, right? So you could use things like that, hide them, and then some people have to look a little bit harder, and then when you open it, there's actually a log so that people can write their names. So we're in the process of hiding the caches at the moment. We actually partnered with the Girl Scouts, and so they have, short of a couple, they have all of the caches right now. We're a little bit delayed, as you can imagine, because of all the snow. Some will be on the ground, and some will be in places that are covered with snow. So it will take a few days for us to be able to hide all of them. And once they're hidden, they will be logged on the website, as I mentioned. Once they're on the website, just a couple more points to mention. They are tagged with a geolocation. So, so you actually have the coordinates to be able to find the cache. You know, this is not NASA or this is not the Army, so it's not accurate, but it gives you at least a good idea within a few feet where to look. And then once you find the cache, one thing that we thought about doing, Marge and I, is actually bring people to the Facebook page so that they can read more about the site and actually take a look at these just amazing stories and take a look at these amazing photos that that you and Mrs. White have posted, and other people as well on the Facebook site. So what we've done is that in each of the cache, we'll have a QR code. Hold on a second. So, ooh, that's because of my background. Can anyone see?
No, we can't see.
I know, I'm trying. Oh, hold on.
Oh, it was there. There it is.
There you
Good.
go. I'm gonna leave it there. It's not gonna be that big, so I printed this one by error. But basically, for those of you who might not have used a QR code, if you use a smartphone and you take out your camera and you point it to this code, it will automatically bring you to the Facebook page or the Facebook post where it has the story and the photos on the particular place. So let's say, for example, let's say there were to be a cache hidden in Parkway Oval. Not that I'm saying that there would be, but let's say there would be one. There would be a QR code, and if you were to use your camera, then you would be able to read, you know, a story about that location. So, am I forgetting anything, Marge? That's kind of the overall.
One other thing that I might say that would be important for me and for the Tuckahoe History Committee is that it's a real collaboration. We have contacted some of the sites, are private property or, you know, on the edge of private property. And so the Assumption Church and Shiloh Baptist Church are on board. And the Girl Scouts, the whole idea of using collaboration. We've also been in touch with the library, and Swadish and Lainey are involved, and they're going to help us come up with a way so that when somebody has found all the sites in Tuckahoe, they can go to the library and bring proof that they have done the circuit, and they'll get a little prize. We're going to probably hit you up, Frank DeMarco, for some little pieces of marble. You know we're coming for you for that. And I guess we have to warn you that we're going to come for you. So anyway, the library is on board. It's just this lovely collaboration. It's really building community, which, you know, my parents have always been about. So that's what makes me really happy about this too.
I have an idea for you, Marjorie. I have a box full of old road race shirts that you can also give out to people that complete the circuit. That's a piece of history. Hey,
Yep.
you know, they go back, you know, back to 2014, some of those shirts that I have. So
We're
I
coming
even have
for
some
you.
shirts with
Yeah.
Senator Klein's name on it.
It's retro at this point, for sure.
Very retro, very.
That would be awesome.
So
Yeah,
anyway,
that-
this is step one. We're hoping it'll be ready in March, and as soon as it is, we'll publicize it, and hopefully it can make it on the website. And Marge, I'll hit you with another project after that. I was thinking of the magical Tuckahoe history tour. Like, so maybe we can start to take it to the next level. So, so anyway, so that's the project. I hope I covered most of the pieces, and I hope people are
You
excited
did a great
about it.
job, Julie.
Thank you,
A
Julie.
great job.
It's fun.
Thank
So.
you. Does anyone have any questions for Julie or Marge?
Not any questions, but on the Magical Mystery Tour, I think you guys should touch base with Carolina at the building office. I bet you she would have some thoughts about that could be helpful. And I think I have a couple Tuckahoe Gators I could donate to the prizes as well.
Great. Okay, I see Lainey's on, so Lainey's got you down for that, Renee. She'll be checking with you, I'm sure.
Okay,
Well, thank you guys for letting us bop in and share this very exciting project.
Thank you, Marge. Good seeing you
Take
again.
care.
Thanks, everyone.
Stay well. Stay well. Thank you, Julie. Our second
Thank you very
presentation,
much. Thank you.
our second presentation this evening is Robert Geston on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Sir, the floor is yours.
Good evening, and thank you for inviting me. The reason for this was twofold. One, I don't know how much of you, or if any of you, have ever read the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It was 72 years old this past December 10th, and it was presented at the United Nations by Eleanor Roosevelt in 1948, following the Second World War. And it's an interesting document in the sense that although it doesn't have any teeth, it scares lots of countries and lots of businesses, even though there's no enforcement, simply because it makes people feel guilty for their behaviors. A few years ago, well, for 20 years, I've been working around the world, bringing human rights into different communities. And then, as you all know, relatively recently, Governor Cuomo demanded that all municipalities in New York State that have a police department have to look at that police department, establish a committee, and come up with a bevy of potential changes that then get submitted to the state. And at the same time, we saw an attack on the United States government, which was interesting in the sense that both sides believe that they're patriots. Both sides pray to the same God, as Abraham Lincoln would have said at the time of the Civil War. And yet we're speaking the same words, but they have very different meanings. And what the Universal Declaration of Human Rights does is gives us a platform, or gives us a foundation where we can speak to each other in the same language. And so what we've started doing, me and some others, is approaching local police departments, local governments, and other agencies about taking an introductory lecture and workshop so that people can start to talk to each other and not at each other by using the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a foundational document, meaning that looking at it from the perspective of things being built off of it rather than a hodgepodge the way things normally get constructed. And another reason that I came up with this was a few years ago, I was at a meeting on national security, and one of Colin Powell's chiefs of staff was present. And I asked him what he thought was the leading cause of danger for the United States. And he said, both internally and externally, the scariest thing that we face is disenfranchised youth. And I asked him at that point if he had looked at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I showed it to him and we read it together. And he said, I see only one problem. It would save the government, national governments, local governments, trillions of dollars. And there's so many people who are invested in getting that money that it would be very hard to institute. But if we could institute the Universal Declaration, we would solve the problems because there wouldn't be disenfranchised youth and people would have the dignity that they crave, which often causes the myriad problems that we have as a society. So I've been working on and off with him continuously, and we came up with a plan. And so far we've worked directly with the Lewisboro Police and did 2 sessions for them and one with the town board that resulted in that tomorrow we're doing the first Zoom training program. So it will be a 2-hour Zoom for the people of Lewisboro and others who want to participate. And we're going to introducing the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and what a human rights city would look like and what human rights would look like as a foundational document for a government, for a department, for the police, or for any other agency that was looking for a way to transform itself and become human-centric rather than focused on the kinds of things that create some of the bigger problems that we're facing. So I know that you've got a meeting ahead of you. I don't want to take up too much time, but I do want to see if you have any questions and if you would like the opportunity to bring this to Tuckahoe and to introduce it to the police, introduce it to yourselves, and move from there.
Could you give us an example of something that you perceive as broken that the declaration could conceivably fix?
For you or for where we've done it before?
Both.
Okay. Every place has its problems, and every place has problems with people feeling that they're not treated fairly. That exists universally. So I'm sure that that exists in Tuckahoe just as it exists in Lewisboro or it exists in White Plains or in Scarsdale. We were invited to Rosario, Argentina, which is a city in the southern part of Argentina, about 1 million people. And we created what was called a human rights city, which is where the NGOs come together, working with the city, working with the administration, and they form an effort to go out and actually solicit the public what the public believes government should look like. It doesn't change what the government is. It doesn't interfere with elections. It's not partisan in any way, shape, or form, but it gets the insight as to what people feel is important and what might be missing or what they simply just don't know about. And what happened was we discovered there was a pocket of indigenous people that lived in Rosario that felt that they were treated very badly by the police and by the medical establishment, which was the municipal hospital system. And we brought in the police chief and we brought in the chief administrator of the hospital, and they listened to these women for the very first time. The police instituted a human rights program. The chief was so impressed that he put it into their training program, into their police academy. And now all police in Rosario, Argentina go through this system so that the way they practice policing starts with the human interaction before it does with the policies and the procedures of the police department. And those policies and procedures have changed because they're benchmarked now against the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The same thing happened in the hospital. Now in the medical school, human rights is integrated into the medical programs. So when you're working as an intern, when you're working in different aspects at the hospital or in the institutes around the hospital, you have a greater understanding of what you're doing, who you're dealing with, and how to treat them with the dignity that you would expect to be treated with yourself. It got so interesting in Rosario that the equivalent of their mass transit said, we want to do this too. And what they started doing is printing. There are 30 articles that make up the Universal Declaration. So on their bus tickets, they started printing up the different 30 articles. So every time you would get on a bus, you would get something that would say, this is article number whatever of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And before long, people were going through the streets saying, we live in a human rights city. And they had recourse not to point fingers at someone, not to point out the abuses, but to point out how they were getting closer and closer to living a life where people felt that they were respected. So whereas unfortunately, human rights in a lot of organizations is about pointing fingers and accusing people of abuses, this system is about how we get to realization and fulfilling the dream that the original document was intended to encourage. So it's not about being angry. It's not about saying you're wrong. It's all about how do we make it better and what are the kinds of things that we can do collectively that bring us together in a divided world and in a divided country and in a divided community.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any board members have any questions, comments? Anyone on this call, on this Zoom meeting?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. Your name and,
Peter Scott.
please. Yep.
In reviewing the articles in the Declaration, most of those, indeed, the document itself seems to be based on our Constitution and Bill of Rights. In the areas where you get into social programs, not so much, say Articles 20 through 30. But my question is concerning the disenfranchisement that he spoke of. Did the gentleman that he spoke to give specific areas where disenfranchisement came from? In other words, doesn't constitutional and Bill of Rights literacy give much of that same kind of buy-in? I mean, because if you look at most of most folks in this nation, very few who have read the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. They don't, and I think, we take it for granted. We have it so good here that we take it for granted. We don't spend the time to learn these things. And your example in Argentina kind of highlights that. They don't have our Constitution and Bill of Rights. They don't have the things that we take for granted. And when you introduced it to them, they responded the way they did. So, I see that effect that occurred through the introduction of this program in Argentina as not quite being analogous here because of the fact that we have the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. But again, to draw back, don't you think constitutional literacy would go a long way towards addressing that disenfranchisement that you spoke of? Thank you.
Any kind of civics education is helpful, but it doesn't go as far as the Declaration goes. And the Declaration, being universal, is far greater impact in impacting individuals because it's not a national effort. Yes, the Constitution has some of those things, but the Constitution is law. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is about something that you have simply because you're human. It's everybody's to own. It cannot be given by a government. It cannot be taken by a government, whereas the Constitution is government. And there's a big difference when the government is in control. And I'll give you a quick example. I was at a meeting in Egypt during the Arab Spring, and there was a UN conference taking place, and a woman from Turkey said, the problem with human rights in Turkey is when Ataturk took over the country, he told women that we were going to be equal. And when someone gives it to you, as we see now in Turkey with the current president, you can take it away. And that's a serious danger. And we sort of saw that in the last few weeks before the inauguration. Not to be political one way or the other, but there was people who believed that there was a threat to democracy. This isn't about that kind of democracy. This is about people, human beings, and the rights we have as human beings.
It seems like you kind of made my point, though, with Turkey, because our rights are not given to us by the government. They're granted to us by the Constitution. And the Constitution actually points to the fact that nature's God is the one who gives us our rights. And the power that we give the government is given by the consent of the governed.
Except for that, when it's the law, it is the government makes laws. This just is,
I understand that, but they can't make any laws that contradict the Constitution or the Bill of Rights.
but we do.
And okay, well, that sounds like a conversation we have over a burger and a beer.
That's good.
I'm just, the law once said that women couldn't vote. The law once said that there was legal slavery. The law, those are the laws. That's not acceptable under the Declaration.
Like I said, burger and a beer, and we can go over those bits because, I get the point, but I was just curious about some of the finer points because, as you pointed out, our civics is sorely lacking.
Absolutely.
Okay, anyone else?
So I would just like to ask, what are, so how does this, if we were to adopt this, what would be the steps in the process?
The steps would be going through a preliminary training period, which could be 2 hours, 1 hour, depending on what your timeframes are. What we talk about is integrating human rights into the system, into the DNA of either an individual or an organization or an institution. And integration takes time because it calls for repetitiveness. So it's going over a certain number of steps so that you can practice, whether individually or collectively, until it becomes part of the DNA of the culture and the society that you live in. And then there are exercises, there are refreshers, or you can go through a more comprehensive program. And I'm happy to send you a draft proposal that was called for by Westchester County, where we're looking at working countywide on some of this.
That would be great.
Just so I'm clear that these are programs that, Robert, hi, Robert, my name is Daniel Lang. Thank you for joining us tonight. Just so I understand, these are programs that you guys put together?
Well, back in the early 90s, I came up with the idea of the UN Decade for Human Rights Education, which the UN unanimously put through in 1994. So from 1995 to 2004, the UN globally did the UN Decade of Human Rights Education. Our organization worked with the UN, pulling out what could be learned, what needed to be changed. And what we're doing now is the end result of all that we learned from that decade and post-decade periods on how human rights can best impact a community, a family, an institution. So for example, the government of Ghana brought us to Ghana to work with the president on helping them redraft their national constitution by putting elements of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights into the country's constitution.
Could you give some better examples? Because you said that this was 72 years and the women had the right to vote in 1920. And also slavery ended with the Civil War. So your statutes did not come into effect until well after them.
They came into effect after the Second World War because of how the world acted during that period. And you can look at what happened in the United States leading up to the Second World War and while the Second World War was being waged when our government sent ships back to Europe for people to die, when Japanese were put in camps, when Jim Crow was in full swing. So I think that there's plenty of examples of why this is important. And we can see this past summer, people on the streets, even in Westchester County, calling for civil rights and equal justice under the law. So we're a long way from the world that we would like to see. And this is a first step in getting to the root causes of those problems in a way that very other few procedures operate, of asking why until you can't ask why anymore, and getting to the root causes so you can rebuild from a sound foundation. So the law itself, the law by itself can be very good or very bad, but it doesn't mean that it's practiced. You know, Grant got rid of the KKK originally, but the KKK was stronger under Wilson probably than it was around the time of the Civil War or post-Civil War. So we have a long way to go in terms of recognizing and dealing with the systemic problems of race, of gender, of all kinds of things, economic disparities, and there are ways to do that. And other places in the world are trying, and there are parts of the United States that are trying, and I'm hoping that Westchester will try.
Okay, Thank you. We have much to discuss, I see.
Greg, there's a question in the chat bar. They're asking, Robert, once the village goes through this training, would the award be sanctioned through the UN, or is the sanctioning body that grants the certification? Who is that?
Our organization is like the Good Housekeeping seal. We do this all over the world. And when there was no COVID, we traveled all over the world. So we helped create the Human Rights Mayors Council, which meets in South Korea every year. We've done this in Taiwan. We've been invited to China, which I keep finding bizarre that they were looking for a human rights program. But once again, it's not about pointing fingers and it's not about partisan politics. It's about the individual and the collective community. So even China was interested.
And could you state the name of the organization again for us, Robert?
The original organization was PDHRE, and pdhre.org is a library of materials. It's not an active website in the sense that it's updated, but it has all the historic documents, so people can become very familiar with how much effort and energy went over those 10 years of the UN program.
I have one question. Robert, when you had sent the declaration to us, to the board via email, it was the unofficial.
It's unofficial only because it's an abbreviated version. You can go to the UN site or just type in Universal Declaration of Human Rights into Google and you'll get the long form. We use this one all over the world because it's manageable. The other one is a little book, and each article is far longer. So this is just easier to use in any kind of learning setting. But it was done with people in the UN Office of Human Rights.
Robert, there's a question from someone in the room, is how does someone join the organization? What is the website info?
Well, the website is not the way to join. The website is pdhre.org, and that will give you information. If somebody wants more information, you can go to either the PDHRE on Facebook or AFTAP, AFTAP on Facebook, and those are ways to get in touch, or I can put my email into the chat, and anyone who wants to reach out directly can contact me.
I did put the PDHRE in the chat. Would we also be able to join the Zoom for that you mentioned?
And I will get that for you in a second. So 1 second, and let me get that. The link for the, I mean, you can go on with your meeting if you don't have any more questions, and I'll just stick that in the chat for you.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Robert before we move on? Okay, thank you, Robert. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I thank you for the information.
And thank you, Renee, for extending the invitation.
Thank you, Robert.
We have no public hearings tonight, and that'll bring us to the adoption of minutes, which is the approval of minutes of the January 11th, 2021 meeting. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Andino.
In favor.
Trustee Lang.
In favor?
Trustee Howell.
In favor.
Trustee Lee.
In favor.
Mayor Luise.
In favor. This will bring us to the first opportunity for anyone in the Zoom room to address the board on any agenda items.
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
Just this is first time. My name is Mustafa Salim. I live. I'm really, I spoke with, I think before Mr. David and the lawyer
Is
in
this-
White
is this an
Lane.
agenda item? Is this on the agenda or is this something?
They asked me to participate, to plead my case here.
That,
It's a small thing.
I understand, but you have to wait. We have resolutions to pass and then there'll be another opportunity for you to address the board. Right now, this portion of the meeting is for agenda items only,
Okay,
okay?
so no
Right.
problem.
Thank you, sir.
I
So
can
does
wait.
anyone have any questions that would like to address the board on any of the agenda items? Okay, move on to resolutions. Resolution number 1 is authorizing the Tuckahoe History Committee to sponsor a geocaching circuit project in various locations within the village. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Trustee Andino.
in favor.
Trustee Lang.
In favor.
Trustee Howell.
In favor.
Trustee Lee.
In favor.
Mayor Luise.
In favor. Resolution number 2 is authorizing the mayor to execute a pilot program, which translates to payment in lieu of taxes, which is an agreement that we will have with Marble Hall Tuckahoe Limited Partnership for the property known as Marble Hall, located at 100 Columbus Avenue. If I may, before I put this to a motion, provide just some background. Silver Street Properties will be renovating the apartments there on 100 Columbus, as well as security upgrades in the lobby. And I also believe there will be some work done on the outside of the building. The bottom line with this agreement, and that's a big, big thank you to the Tuckahoe School District for working with David on this, as well as Eastchester Town, Mr. Lou Reeder and Todd Hetman for their involvement in this. The bottom line is we will be able to provide, or we are going to be able to provide affordable housing for the residents of 100 Columbus Avenue going forward for the next 35 years. David, is there anything you want to add?
Nothing specifically, just, yeah, again, thank you to the school district, Judge Siebert there, to the mayor. This has actually been something that's been on our plate for, I mean, Mayor, we were just talking about this, almost over a year now when this company first came. So
It doesn't seem like it, but
it's been a long process. It's a really good thing where this is a 35-year agreement. It's going to ensure that 100 stays affordable. They're looking to put $3 to $4 million into that building. Most of the apartments, the interior work, some exterior work, upgraded HVA systems and security and things like that. So it's going to be a big plus to the residents there, to the village itself. So glad this is finally moving along.
and if I may just add, there was some business negotiations, if you will, that actually benefited the village throughout the process. So again, my hat's off to everyone involved in making this possible. So with that being said, any board members like to make any comments before I put this to a motion? So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Trustee Andino.
In favor.
Trustee Lang.
In favor?
Trustee Howell.
In favor.
Trustee Lee.
In favor.
Mayor Luise.
Absolutely in favor. Resolution number 3 is authorizing a declaration from the Village of Tuckahoe recognizing February 1st through February 7th, 2021 as Gun Violence Survivor Week to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence. As we can see, this was last week, but we are still going to acknowledge this, and hats off to Naomi Watts for bringing this to our attention. Does anyone on the board have any comment? Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
Trustee Andino.
In favor.
Trustee Lang.
In favor?
Trustee Howell.
In favor.
Trustee Lee.
In favor.
Mayor Luise.
In favor. Resolution number 4 is authorizing the approval of vouchers in the amount of $447,507.71. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Trustee Andino.
In favor.
Trustee Lang.
In favor.
Trustee Howell.
In favor.
Trustee Lee.
In favor.
Mayor Luise.
In favor. I do not believe we have any items for discussion tonight. That being none, we'll turn this portion of the meeting over to our department heads, and we're going to begin, as we always do, with the Chief of Police, Chief John Costanzo.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board,
Good
and
evening.
public. Nothing really to report, just a couple of announcements. In the recent storms, I just want to acknowledge and commend our residents for really keeping up with staying out of the snow zones with just a few exceptions. They opened up the roads and allowed our DPW to plow safely and efficiently. So just thank you to the residents for that. There are a couple of storms still in the future, so I just want to hope that everyone stays vigilant in staying off the road whenever there is a storm. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Mr. Frank DeMarco, our Superintendent of Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board.
Good evening.
I just want to talk about a couple of things. I really don't have much to say as well, but I want to mirror what John said about the snow zones and the importance of many of these snow zones. Some of our trucks, some of our bigger trucks, without the capability of going into certain areas or making turns, actually get stuck in certain locations. So these snow zones are very important to us. We want to make sure that we do our job effectively and efficiently. And, without having many of these cars towed or ticketed, we don't want that to happen. But then again, we have areas like these hills, Terrace Place, where they need to be salted. We really want to get to these locations numerous times without any issues or problems getting by there. So please take these snow zones into consideration. They're very important to all of us. We want to keep all these roads safe for everyone. I really didn't want to talk about snow that I did not forecast for this year. So with that said, yeah, we do have a couple of more days of snow. If people are uncertain about sanitation pickup, I ask that they try to call us. Sometimes we have to make a last minute decision. With this big snowstorm that we most recently had, starting sanitation pickup at 6:30 and having almost 10 inches of snow, it's very difficult to get into these residents' homes without sacrificing somebody getting hurt. So I ask, if we're going to have a significant amount of snowfall, if residents could just place their garbage at curbside. We do make our rounds. We make sure that we get everything at curbside. It's just very difficult at times to trek through stairs and walkways that are not shoveled or salted and are icy down below the surface of the snow. So we ask that, yes, please help us out. We try to post it quickly on the Recollect site. I recommend, if you're not a part of the Recollect site, you do get instant notices and emergency calls that go out and messages. Please sign up for Recollect, and it's very important that you get these messages right away. And we try to post them also on our webpage, when we're more understanding of what the sanitation pickup will be for that day based on the snow. And with that said, I really just want to commend, the men and women of DPW. Yes, Omira, we do have a woman on DPW. I just realized that Jackie helps us all the time. And I do have to say that men and women of DPW,
Thank you, Frank.
And, and I'd be remiss to not mention the police department as well, because without the two departments working during these conditions, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So they do go the extra mile to get things done. People don't see it, don't realize it, but I am making it aware that they do above and beyond. So I say thank you to them. And that's all I really have.
Thank you, Frank. And I just want to commend your department as well. Monday night, we were showing Blacktop Monday night after that storm. So, and I know the rest of the world wasn't seeing that. So hats off to every member of your department, as well as our police department as well, for keeping our roads safe and keeping our residents safe and whoever travels through this village safe. So thank you, guys. And it looks like the Rocky Mountains over there behind Parkway Casino. So if you get a chance, go over there and take a look. Looks good. Mr. John Galuzzi, our recreation attendant, is here with us this evening. John.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening, John.
We're grateful to Susan Chamara and the Tuckahoe Beautification Committee for directing all the planning and rebuilding of our community center, new walls, stairs, and patio. Also, Frank DeMarco of our Tuckahoe Department of Public Works played a huge role in the redecoration of the facade and the patio out front of the community center. The community center offers a nice, clean, safe environment for adults and young adults under 18. We've just installed a new drink and snack machine as well. We have classrooms for small meetings and private study, a full operational kitchen. And there's much more to come as we move closer and closer, finding our way back to normal, a normal way of life, that is. I just want to talk a moment about the blood drive, the very successful blood drive we had this past Saturday. Snow and freezing temperatures combined with COVID-19 have severely limited the New York Blood Center's ability to collect blood. And a lot of people know about this. Each year, on the first Saturday in February, we always have a blood drive at the community center. This past Saturday, the Forever Rallying for Regina blood drive hit their milestone in collecting blood. This drive is directed and hosted annually in Tuckahoe since 2001 by our Tuckahoe resident, Rita Mastro-Berardino. This year, there were many who joined in to help Rita's team. Along with myself, we had assistance come from Trustee Renee Howell, Judy Fix, Angela Sorgi, and Lisa Brown, all of whom helped Rita organize the operations of the drive, the blood drive. Saturday's blood drive at the Tuckahoe Community Center saw over 50 community residents sign up. 50 community residents sign up to give blood, and we had over 12 walk-ins. Quite a few participated. As a result, the Forever Rallying for Regina blood drive collected 66 pints of blood, which provides a gift of life to 198 hospital patients. Also, I must say thank you to Tina Rivera and the New York Blood Center for the very successful blood drive this weekend as well. Without Tina's group, none of these life-saving benefits can be realized. If you'd like to plan ahead, then our next Forever Rallying blood drive will be next year, Saturday, February 5th in 2022. If you want to put it on the calendar way ahead of time. The community center will be open for small parties and gatherings. On weekdays, we'll have early afternoons available in April. This is beginning in April. I forgot to read that. Beginning in April, we'll have the afternoons available to midday, and most weekends and Saturday and Sunday afternoons available for gatherings and birthday parties. We are strict in following all current New York State County CDC regulations pertaining to COVID-19. If you go to our website at www.tuckahoe.com, click on the Departments tab at the top of the page, then click on Community Center. In the drop-down menu, you will see some photos of inside and outside the Community Center. I will be happy to assist you with any questions pertaining to our village recreational activities during this period of COVID. If you'd like to give me a call, I'd be happy to talk to you. If interested in any bookings, I'll be happy to go over all the details pertaining to your needs. My phone number here at the community center is 231-0229, of course, with a 914 area code. My email and contact info can be found on the Village of Tuckahoe website. On a special note and a reminder, our village elections are coming up next month, and you'll vote here at the Tuckahoe Community Center. The village election date is Tuesday, March 16th, and it begins at 6 a.m. in the morning till 9 p.m. in the evening. Please come out and vote, and thank you very much for your time, and have a good evening.
Thank you, John. Camille, do you have anything for us?
I have no report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. Gary?
Mr. Mayor, I think, as everyone may know, the courts have been closed for parking and moving violations. We started last week with trying to do the parking through Zoom, and Connie was a big help with that. So if anyone out there has a parking ticket that they have an issue with and need to discuss it with me, obviously everything would have to be approved by the judge. They would reach out to the court clerk, and I know we have a date coming up in March that we're going to be available to try to resolve these parking tickets. We're going to eventually, hopefully, get the moving violations going, but right now they're on hold. And that's what I have.
Okay, thank you, Gary.
You're welcome.
Mr. Burke?
Sure. A couple of just quick items. One, on a piece of really good news, the village has been awarded a $175,000 community development block grant for upgrades to the Main Street Park, which is really exciting. So that's a matching grant that we recently borrowed funds for. So once that contract comes up and gets approved, we'll be reaching out to the community to figure out how we best pick which types of equipment are going to go in there. So a big thanks to Mr. DeMarco and Suzette Lopane at the county for helping us put that grant together. It's going to be really great for the community. And another piece of news, the county executive office has asked us to compile a list of any homebound seniors or anyone that's actually homebound that's going to need the vaccine. There's no time frame on this. They don't know when they'll be able to get vaccines and do this, but they just asked us to start that list. So we'll put something on the website in the next couple of days, so you can kind of email us that information and we can kind of start compiling that list. I would recommend that if you can get out, or if anyone can get out and give you a ride and you can go get it, it's probably going to be easier that way because there is no time frame on this. But again, if there's anyone that's homebound that does need it delivered, let's get on that list. And when they do start that program, whenever it is, you'll be the first to get it. So that's it.
Thank you, David. Now bring us to miscellaneous business. The Tuckahoe Commission on Police Reform will be holding its public meeting on February 22nd at 7 p.m. That meeting will be via Zoom. The next village board meeting will be March 8th at 7 p.m. And that'll bring us to our Board of Trustee member reports, and we'll begin with Trustee Elmira Andino.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'd like to start with the library report. So as everyone knows, the library has window pickup hours only by appointment. Mondays, 11 to 7 p.m., Tuesday through Friday, 11 to 5 p.m. You can call the library at 914-961-2121 or email. You can go on the website and get some information there. There are a few programs that are being held or were held this month. We had our very own trustee, Dr. Renee Howell. She did a discussion on COVID vaccine on February 3rd at 6:30. And there were a wealth of information for people. People had a lot of questions that were answered. So look out for the video that comes out pretty soon, I think probably tomorrow from the library. We're also gonna have on Wednesday, February 17th, Cooking with Jenny. She's going to be teaching us how to make hot cocoa cubes to make for yourself or to enjoy as gifts. On Thursday, February 18th, we will have a Black History Month Zoom session titled Soulful Reflections that I'll be hosting, and I've invited friend Ilyasa Shabazz, Malcolm X, and Dr. Betty Shabaz's daughter, who's an educator, a motivational speaker, and an author. She will be joining us to do some readings, and we're asking for participation from the community. We're looking for people to read poems, recite speeches, or any literary work that you would want to share with the community. I welcome you to contact me on my website, on the email, ondino@tuckahoe-ny.com. There'll also be a dumpling making workshop on Tuesday, February 23rd at 6:45. If you'd like to learn how to make dumplings, which I do. And then we have the usual recurring children's programs, story time on Tuesdays at 11 and Fridays at 11, sing along with Miss Elaine, yoga for kids. And for the adults, we have an art class with resident Jessica on Wednesday, February 10th, this week at 5 for an amazing art class from home. We have a book club. Librarian Lisa Regano is going to lead book discussion on a series of classics, starting with Ethan Frome. Books are available for pickup. And on Tuesday, February 16th, you have Tibetan sound healing with Karen Reitz. And she's going to be going over the singing bowls, or Tibetan singing bowls have the ability to induce deep relaxation, reduce stress, and improve sleep. So if you're interested in any of those things, get on Tuesday, February 16th. And so as I say every month, there's a lot that the library still offers, even through COVID. So I encourage you to go on the website and look up all the virtual events that you could participate in. David, the mayor already brought up the police reform, the Commission on Police Reform. Our draft report will be posted, David, when tomorrow?
I'm hoping by the end of the day tomorrow, yeah.
Okay, so tomorrow or Wednesday, look out for the report. It'll be posted in advance of the public announcement period on February 22nd. It was a very interesting collaborative event with the committee. And I think one of the things that I wanted to share with the village is we had a survey that was sent out. Just to give you a few stats on some of the information that we collected, we had 181 people respond to the survey. Just in terms of demographic information, we had 65%, 118 people who were white that responded, 16% African American Black responded, 30 people. In terms of gender, interestingly enough, 108 women responded, 60% almost, and 65 men, 35%, almost 40%. The majority of the people who did respond to the survey were people who live in the village for 20 plus years. So 85 people, 47% of the residents that responded live here for 20 plus years. And the other largest group was 11 to 20 years, 21%. So just to give you a little information of who responded. So there were 4 questions that sort of highlighted the themes of what the survey talked about. So one of the questions that was asked was, how would you rate the interactions of the Tuckahoe Police Department when dealing with the members of the public? 91% of the respondents rated their interactions as somewhat or very positive. That's a very high number. There were officers in Tuckahoe treat people fairly. 85% agreed or strongly agreed that officers in Tuckahoe treat people fairly. Officers in the Tuckahoe Police Department treat those in the community with dignity and respect. 80% of respondents agreed or strongly agreed. I trust the Tuckahoe Police Department to do its job with integrity. 84% of the respondents agreed or strongly agreed. So this gives you a good idea of how the community views our department. And it really was an eye-opener for those who really didn't know. There were a couple of areas that highlighted maybe some room for improvement. So one of the questions that was asked, do you know how to submit a compliment or a complaint regarding the Tuckahoe Police Department? And more than 65% of residents said that they did not, which is one of the areas that the commission has identified in terms of communication and access to information as one of the areas that we'll work on. And then the second one was, I believe that complaints lodged against the police officer are taken seriously and investigated. 52% of the respondents agree or strongly agree with this statement. So I think part of, and we talked about this, part of what this might speak to is educating the public about how the complaints work. When someone submits a complaint, what's the process? So we'll shed a little more light on that in the coming days. Some other announcements. We had COVID testing again over the weekend. We had to move the testing from the community center over to Shiloh Baptist Church. So I want to thank the Pastor Gerald and the church for always graciously opening their doors, even at the last minute, to serve the community. Saturday testing, we tried it for those people who said that they couldn't make it on Mondays, usually, or Wednesdays when we had it during the week. And I also want to thank some of the volunteers who have been helping even from last year to date. Kara Cronin, Cassie Savage, Marilyn Graham, Noreen Yancey, Daryl Taylor. And also thank you to trustees Renee Howell and Gina Lee, who also gave of their time to support this effort and volunteered their time. And a huge thank you to you, John Galuzzi, at the community center, always so welcoming and helpful and ready to feed everybody when we're there. So thank you all. As David mentioned, the vaccines, they're very scarce, so we're encouraging people to go ahead and try to get appointments if you can. There are vaccines coming to the Eastchester CVS on February 12th. I contacted CVS and I also spoke to the health commissioner of the county to find out, how readily available will these vaccines be? And they seem to think that you can start making appointments as of February 11th. So we'll see how that works out. You can go on cvs.com and to make an appointment. Or you can contact the Eastchester CVS as well. We will continue testing, doing COVID testing on Mondays, beginning February 15th through March 8th. We will have the testing done every Monday for those few weeks. So let's see here. I also want to thank, as has already been said, DPW and the police for keeping the roads clear. I talked to several friends in Westchester and everyone was still complaining about their roads not being clear, and ours were. So thank you. I went out because I needed something and I was surprised at how quickly we were able to do that. So thank you guys for your service. I also had a conversation with the superintendent, Amy Goodman from Tuckahoe Schools, regarding students who are struggling with virtual learning. We're looking for people to volunteer their time and to give some homework help over a couple of weeks, twice a week for a couple of hours. We're looking for volunteers to help. We do have a few people volunteering, including Mayor Mary Marvin, who does the volunteer homework help in Mount Vernon. So she gave us a few tips on how to do this. I also want to congratulate Trustee Howell. She's been appointed to the Westchester Board of Managers of Lab and Research. They're responsible for appointing lab directors, exercising management and control of laboratories, making rules and regulations regarding the administrations of the lab and fees to charge for services. So kudos to you, Dr. Howell. It's always good to have Tuckahoe represented on these boards in the county. Let's see here. So it is Black History Month, so I'd like to recognize, and I don't mean to step on your toes, Dr. Howell, but I'd like to recognize 35-year-old Kismikia Corbett. She's a Black scientist from North Carolina, and she is the co-lead of the team that developed the Moderna vaccine. Dr. Corbett, who was 34 years old at the time that the vaccine was actually developed, is now 35. And I'd like to highlight her for the contribution she has made, not only to a culture, but which undoubtedly evokes pride, but she's also made a contribution to humanity in developing this vaccine because it's going to save millions. It's already saving millions and will in the years to come. So that's it for me, Mayor.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple things. First, I want to congratulate the chief on the department it really, it sounds like that survey went real well. So, nice job, Chief, and you can, pass that on to the department as well.
Yeah, it really does, Danny, speak to the leadership and just the relationship between community and police here.
Yeah, and I also want to thank the folks that contributed to the survey, because that was super important to, show just what you guys are doing down there. So thank you very much, the public. Okay. So first, also, I want to thank the DPW for their incredible job handling the storm, keeping us all safe. That was probably the second biggest storm that I've seen around here, and you guys just killed it, Frank. Unbelievable. Your men are amazing. I love every single one of them. So nice job.
And woman.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for correcting me, trustee Andy. Thank you. So nice job to the DPW. Also, I want to thank the Community Fund for the $25,000 grant to the EVAC. They play a huge part in our town as well. They're all volunteers. It's a commitment. So I truly thank the Community Fund for that grant, for $25,000 for COVID relief. The money will really go far. Just so you guys know, that money's nice, but EVAC is still seeking donations like every other organization. Their expenses have also increased with all of the PPE and stuff. So any donation would be well appreciated to those guys with all of the hard work that they do for us. And lastly, I'd like to recognize the passing of Mr. Simmons. Folks that don't know Mr. Simmons, he's been the commander down at the AC Jeffries post for, I don't know, a couple of different occasions. He was a commander, and in total it was over 10 years. I was fortunate enough to work closely with Mr. Simmons on some fundraising efforts, and he was a wonderful man, and we thank him for all his service. So thank you to Mr. Simmons' family. But that's it. I want to thank the gentleman that came tonight, giving us all of that information on the Universal Declaration. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Trustee Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome.
So work continues on planning and zoning, not too much new. So zoning meeting will be February 10th and planning board meeting will be held on February 17th. Both are at 7:30 in the evening via Zoom. I wanted to let people know that the Eastchester PTA Council is going to be holding a discussion with our state representatives, Senator Shelley Mayer, who's the head of the Education Committee, and Amy Paulin. They'll be talking about what it's going to take to get back to school and what funding we're going to get for that. So that event is free for anyone to register. You'll have to go to Eventbrite and register for it, and you'll be given the information on the Zoom meeting. I also wanted to thank Adrian Michelle, who put me in touch with Robert Keston, and the way they met was actually they're both people who attended the Catalyst 1000 effort that's being put on by Westchester County. I had posted some information on my Facebook site, and Adrian had gone there. This is a program to launch 1,000 small businesses within the next year, specifically made for Westchester residents. So Robert was one of those small people, wanting to continue this nonprofit work that he's been doing. So that was a great connection that was made. And another thing that I had put out on my Facebook site, which I know a lot of the businesses have taken advantage of, and I just wanted to speak about it here, is that New York State has extended the small grant program for small restaurants, especially in a village like ours where we favor small privately owned businesses as opposed to big chains. Those are the businesses that have been most affected during the pandemic. And so it's important for us to keep working with our state legislators to make sure that these programs are available to benefit the businesses as they try to work through the pandemic. So we're going to continue to work with them on making sure those programs are funded. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, besides, of course, the great work done by the police and the DPW and John at the community center, I mean, I think collaboration is a great theme for this evening's meeting. So I wanted to tell you about another collaboration. And really, after seeing what happened, you know, after a lot of the videos that came out after the insurgents, where we had police officers who were beaten and killed, I think, you know, a lot of the efforts that we've been having in our community, working with our police, become even more important. So while it's called the Police Reform Committee, and I'm not, you know, on the committee, but I was able to attend one of the meetings that the committee had, it did actually make me think about ways that we as public officials need to do better to help support our police. And I've actually had the opportunity to work with Chief Costanza and Detective Pinto on helping connect some residents that have, you know, come up as needing some help through, you know, information that the police have gotten to us. And I wanted to just thank them for being so supportive and willing to work and try to get help for these residents. And it's an example, I think, of the kind of work that our police department does. They're really focused on community. They want to do what they can to help. And I think as public officials, we need to think about ways we can help them get connected with the county and the state that can help our residents. So in the course of doing some of that work, I had the opportunity to talk to other local officials who are, you know, on our border, in some of the calls that the Tuckahoe Police Department has been called to. And, you know, I got such great feedback. So, you know, while we got feedback from our community, which is great, I also got tremendous feedback from surrounding local officials. People said things to me like, on particular calls we were talking about, that they were so glad when they got there and they saw that it was Tuckahoe police who had got there first, because they knew they were trained, they were competent, and they were capable of handling a difficult situation. So I just wanted to share that with the community, that this is really what community policing is all about, right? Being able to serve the people within your community and being able to be respected outside of your community. So just wanted to make sure everybody had that information. And that's it.
Thank you. Trustee Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to say congratulations to Susie Carpenter for taking the position on the planning board, and want to welcome you. Thank you, Julie and Marge and Robert, for your presentations tonight. As for the senior citizens, the level of concern is outrageous. They are so nervous. I speak to many seniors weekly, and they are so upset and worried about not getting the vaccine. We are making great efforts to get all COVID info to all the members. A survey of Tuckahoe Village members shows about 25% either have appointments or have gotten their first shot. We have also been in touch with CVS, and we are letting our residents know about when the vaccines should be coming in. We are letting the residents know when they're starting the appointments as well. I've also spoken to several healthcare providers, including CVS, and hopefully once they're ready to be distributed, we can get our seniors over there. If anybody needs a ride, you know, we're willing to take you. If you need help with the app, if you need help making your appointments, we are definitely here for you. What else do we have here? I wanted to just discuss Eastchester Recreation is also having registration for March programs. These programs will run for 4 weeks and go right up until spring break. There is a Snapology for all ages, actually for 7 to 14 years old, and there's virtual art for preschoolers to 8th grade. To register, fill out the registration form on eastchester.org/department/rec. I want to express gratitude on behalf of myself, Sheila Marcotte, and Teresa Nicholson for all snow angels who volunteered to help out dozens and dozens of residents who needed help shoveling out their homes. This program has been extremely successful. But like any other organization, we could always use a few more volunteers. To register for services, for volunteers, email Tuckahoe Snow Angels at yahoo.com. And lastly, I want to thank the EMT, police, and fire department for all their tireless work during COVID, as well as dealing with storms that hit us this week. I want to thank Frank DeMarco and our DPW for all their hard work. We had a lot of snowfall causing dangerous conditions. Their prepared and swift response to ensure the streets would be safe for motorists to travel was extraordinary. Along with snow removal, the crew worked long hours to ease traffic and collect trash and recycling on schedule. So thank you again. And please, residents, as always, exercise caution and drive appropriately for all road conditions. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I have very little to report tonight. I mean, because everybody before me has already done it. But if I could just comment, that blood drive, the significance of that blood drive hits home when you realize that 198 hospital patients will benefit from those folks that took the time out to donate blood that day. And if anyone has been in that situation or has had a family member in that situation, you realize how important what those donors mean to you and your family and your loved ones. So my hat's off to everyone involved. Rita, I'm sorry I didn't get there this year. And I hope to see you there next year. And again, what can we say? I mean, it's already been said. It's amazing the work that the village employees do here day in and day out. And as we all just heard from all the trustees, you're always hearing good things about our employees and about this village. As far as this vaccine goes, again, Monday is our conference call with the county exec. It seems that supply chain is going to flow a little bit more in the coming weeks, hopefully with the addition of these local pharmacies and hopefully these pop-up centers that are going to occur throughout the county. Hopefully it's not going to be the ordeal it has been to this point for people to get the vaccine. So hang in there, keep wearing your mask, washing your hands, social distancing. We're almost there. I think I said it last month. Just think if we didn't have the vaccine and we were still going through this mess. So that's a good positive for us to keep our focus on. And that's all I have for this meeting. And with that being said, this is now the second opportunity for any member of the public to address the board on any item.
Mr. Salam?
You're on mute. You're on mute.
You hear me?
Yes.
You hear me?
Yes.
Now we hear you. Yeah.
My problem is a small one, and I hope you can be able to help me. I lived in Midland Avenue for about 11 years before, and I moved to Yonkers for 3 years, and I came back to Tuckahoe again last year in August. I have a shed. I put it with the permission of the landlord in the back of the backyard of the property. I don't know, because all this year is required to file for permit to put the shed together. nobody ever mentioned that to me, or I am not aware of that. So they sent a fine. They want to fine to the landlord, asking $1,000 penalty for doing something without permit. It happened to be, I'm not aware of that. For my good of my heart, because I want to correct the situation. I do contracting. I have my license and everything. So I went and I filed for permit so to correct the situation. Okay, and I already paid $230 for the building department, and I made my insurance and everything, but they don't want to remove this $1,000 penalty on me. I didn't violate any construction. This is just with good intention. I put the shed together. I'm willing to take it out even until I get my permit and I put it back together. I asked Mr. David and I asked the lawyer and I asked the building department. I don't have the $1,000 to pay with this harsh time, and I am a COVID-19 patient too. I stay 3 months or more sick and and without work, and I am really asking for a break or mercy above justice. And after that, the inspector is after me. He sent to the landlord again after even I filed for the permit. If I don't pay the $1,000 by the February 3rd or something, they're gonna fine me every day addition $1,000. Where I'm gonna get all this money from? If I have the $1,000 and really I'm in a hard time, I barely, thank God, I pay my bills or whatever lately. Since Christmas to now, I have only 4 days or 5 days work. If I am not saving money through the summer, about 4 months I work after I was sick with COVID, I will not be able to survive to now. And now you need $1,000 for an honest mistake and not a construction violation. Actually, it's just a shed putting together, and I can take it apart if that make you happy. And after I get the permit, the one I apply for, I can put it back together in 1 day. So I'm pleading you, please remove this $1,000 on me, because I cannot afford it.
Sir, it's not that easy for you to come in front of the board and request for us to wipe away this fine.
They ask me, Mr. David, and the lawyers, they say the only people able to remove that or give you a break is the board. And you gotta come and plead your case with you guys. It's not a building violation, sir. It's just a shed. It's not, I'm not construction, something.
Okay. Let me say this. This is not a discussion that the board is going to have publicly right now. We will talk with our attorney. We'll talk with Mr. Gerdston. We'll speak with David Burke, and we'll see what, if any, resolution there will be. Those fines are in place for a reason, sir. And for us to excuse that fine in your particular case would be doing an extreme injustice to everyone before you has paid their fines.
Sir,
as I said, sir, this is something that we're not going to discuss this here in this meeting.
Who's going to help me now?
This is something that the board will discuss with Mr. Gerdston and the village administrator, and then we'll come to some sort of determination, if there will be one.
Can you please inform the building department by that, so they don't fine me every day at another $1,000?
I cannot, whatever the ordinance is, if they are enforcing the ordinance of the village, I'm not going to tell them not to do that, sir.
The lawyer in White Plain, the lawyer, he instructed them not even to give me a ticket, because it's not really building violation.
Okay.
He told me that, and I spoke with him.
And sir, I'm sure this has been explained to you by the building department and by the village attorney and by Mr. Burke.
So I wait until I hear from them?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to address the board on any item?
Yes. Hi, my name's Ed Conway.
Yes, sir.
Hi, thank you. My wife and I own a property, a house at 8 Winslow Circle, and we would like to ask the board to add to its next agenda the prohibition of stadium lighting. This was a hot topic a couple of years ago with Concordia until they indefinitely postponed the lighting there. Now with recent events, we'd like to revisit this, put this on the agenda for the next meeting, as well as look to your support to move that to the next step and the passage of it. There was at the time considerable opposition to the lighting. A petition of 250 people signed it, number of meetings. So we would just like to make it explicit with yourselves to move that forward and pass that specific ordinance.
Yes, sir. My understanding is part of that site plan approval when Concordia was the owner of that property. That site plan approval was contingent on no stadium lightings being put in place.
That's right.
So I guess this is a question for the attorney.
But there was at the time, I think in the letter, Mayor Eklund had a discussion with Dr. Nunes.
Yes.
To indefinitely postpone. So there were some gray areas, and I think Gary is very familiar with the issue. And after that, it sort of dropped off people's radar. And even though that is zoned residential, it was hard to believe for many of the residents that 60 to 80-foot lighting structures could be put up on that property, even if it's zoned residential. So we thought it would be best to make it explicit in the ordinance that it is prohibited in the village of Tuckahoe.
Okay, thank you. That sounds like a conversation that also will be had with the Board of Trustees, as well as Mr. Gerdston and David Burke.
That's right. That's why we bring it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the room would like to address the board?
Yes, real quick. I'll make it quick. I would also like to thank Superintendent DeMarco and the entire Highway Department for how well they handled the snow removal. Also, Chief Costanzo for the Police Department's efforts in snow removal. I would like to congratulate Trustee Howell on her new appointment of the head of the Westchester Board of Managers of Lab and Research. And last but not least, I want to thank Trustee Andino for all of her continual efforts in the COVID relief. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Anyone else?
I do have a question. I do have a question.
Yes, who's speaking?
This is Julie Fortier.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Julie.
How are you? So I have a question about the police commission. What's the next steps from here now that we have the survey and there were a couple of meetings with the general public?
On February 22nd, that will be a public meeting where they will, as mentioned earlier, they'll have an opportunity to look at the potential final draft, which will then be submitted to the village board for their approval at the March 8th meeting. And then it makes its way up to Albany for April 1st, as requested by the executive order.
Got it.
And Julie,
So
the
we're still open for public comment come that Zoom meeting on February 22nd.
February 22nd.
Right, but you will see within the next 2 days the where we are right now, what we are going to present to the public for one more final comment.
I'm sorry, did someone was saying something to me?
The draft will be posted on the website tomorrow so that the residents can see the report and have a week to review it and then comment on the 22nd.
Right.
Okay,
And
so
then
any
depending on what those comments are, depending on how the commission, takes those comments into consideration, the final report will be modified or not. And then it'll go to the village board on March 8th for their passage.
Okay, so so this would not be an appropriate venue for an additional comment. It would be the 22nd.
Please, yes, save it for the 22nd. Yep,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you. Okay, anyone else? That being none, I
Yeah,
make the motion to adjourn.
Mayor?
Do I have a second?
I think you have
That's
someone else.
somebody
there.
else.
Yeah, hello?
Okay,
Okay. Mr. Mayor, Deputy, how are you?
yes.
I just wanted to comment on the that survey that came in for the police
Okay,
department.
could you just give us your name, please, and your address?
Anthony Campanile, 2 Clinton Place.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. No, I just wanted to comment on that survey that was done that came in for the police department. As a resident, I'm just thrilled that such an overwhelming majority of that survey came in positive. You know, as a longtime resident here and as a retired police officer myself, I've had opportunity to work very close with the Tuckahoe Police Department and found them always to be top notch. You know, being that we live in such a difficult time and such anti-police rhetoric out there, I'm glad to see that we don't have that problem here in Tuckahoe. And I just want to commend Chief Costanzo and the ranks of the police department and doing such a good job in keeping us safe. And hopefully better times ahead. So I just wanted to extend my thank you to the police department. This is a resident.
Thank you, sir. I just wish more people had participated in the survey. But I was impressed with the amount of people that did, and I was impressed with their feedback nonetheless. Okay, anyone else? Okay, that being none, I make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, until next time, Tuckahoe, have a good night.
Have a good
Night,
night.
everyone.
Night, everybody.